I'd just endured the worst week of my life. In 7 short days, I'd learned 3 bitter truths that no amount of royal training could have prepared me for. First, my advisors had abysmal taste in women. Second, desperation often hid behind expensive perfumes and forced laughter. Third, a man's dignity could die from sheer embarrassment long before his body gave out. That evening was supposed to be the last straw, the final diplomatic meeting disguised as a blind date, orchestrated by High Steward Harlow in his endless quest to secure me a suitable wife. Suitable, in his eyes, meant politically advantageous, preferably from a noble human family to strengthen alliances within Eldoria. But, as I sat alone at the corner table in the Silver Stag Tavern, it became clear that this one wasn't happening at all. The Silver Stag was a neutral ground on the borderlands, a place where humans and orcs occasionally mingled under the fragile peace of the recent treaty. The air was thick with the scent of ale, roasted meats, and the underlying tension of old enemies sharing space. I'd been there for 2 hours, nursing a tankard of warm ale that had long since lost its appeal. Bridge, the barkeep, had polished the same mug 17 times by my count, her nervous habit flaring every time she glanced my way. She knew who I was, Prince Dorian Fairhaven, and her pitying looks only made the humiliation worse. From across the room, my cousin Lady Rosalind shot me sympathetic glances, her eyes saying everything her position as a courtier wouldn't allow her to voice. The other patrons pretended not to notice, but I could feel their stares. The prince, heir to Eldoria, stood up like a common fool. Tomorrow the whispers would spread through the castle halls, the city streets, and beyond. Did you hear? Prince Dorian waited like a lovesick puppy for a woman who never showed. My cheeks burned at the thought. In my frustration, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the broken compass, my grandfather's last gift to me. He'd pressed it into my 12-year-old hands weeks before he died, his voice weak but firm. This will always point you to your true north, boy. It was a beautiful piece once, silver etched with intricate runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight, a relic from the old wars infused with subtle magic. But I dropped it shortly after, shattering the mechanism. Now, the needle spun wildly, pointing nowhere and everywhere at once. I'd kept it anyway, not out of sentiment alone, but because it was honest in its brokenness, like me. Perfect on the surface, but directionless inside, forever chasing the expectations of the throne. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the stone floor with a sound that echoed my shattered expectations. I'm done, I muttered to myself. I'm going back to the castle, and I'll tell Harlow I'd sooner marry a tree than endure another one of these humiliations. The words felt liberating, even if no one heard them. I tossed a few coins on the table, more than necessary, a habit of royalty, and turned toward the door. That's when it happened. The tavern door burst open, not with the gentle creak of a regular patron, but with the forceful shove of someone who didn't ask permission from the world. A gust of cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and distant storms from the border forests. Conversations halted mid-sentence, tankards paused halfway to lips. The room froze, tension rippling through the air like a drawn bowstring. She stepped inside. Not a human woman, as I'd foolishly expected, but an orc. Her skin was a deep, verdant green, like the ancient moss that clung to the stones of forgotten ruins in the whispering woods. She stood at least 7 feet tall, her frame broad and powerful, clad in battle-worn armor, etched with scars from countless clashes. Leather straps crisscrossed her chest, holding plates of darkened steel that bore the marks of blades and arrows. Her hair was braided in the warrior style of the Orc clans, long, dark strands woven with beads and feathers that spoke of victories and honors. 2 tusks curved upward from her lower jaw, polished and inscribed with runes that glowed faintly, symbols of her clan's heritage. Her eyes, sharp, amber-hued, swept the room like a predator assessing threats. Every human in the tavern tensed instinctively, hands inching toward hidden daggers or simply freezing in place. The few orcs present nodded in subtle recognition, a warrior's acknowledgement of another. She didn't belong here, not in a human tavern, not in this fragile peace. Yet there she was, commanding the space without a word. Her gaze locked onto me. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just us. Then she strode forward, her boots thudding against the floorboards with purposeful weight. Patrons shifted aside, creating a path as if compelled by some unseen force. She reached my table, pulled out the chair opposite me with a scrape that echoed my earlier one, and sat down heavily. "You are Dorian," she said, her voice deep and resonant, laced with the guttural accent of the Orc tongues. It wasn't a question. "The prince. The one arranged for me in this blind date." My mind reeled, thoughts scattering like leaves in a gale. Arranged? For her? An orc? The implications crashed over me, the secret dealings of the court, the desperate push for a stronger alliance with the orc clans to prevent another war. I thought the blind date was with a human noble, but this was the true diplomatic match. I'd been stood up, or so I thought, but she was late. Dangerously late, and now everything had changed. I stared at her, my mouth dry, the compass forgotten in my clenched fist. The hook had been set, and I was caught. I sat there, frozen in place, staring at the Orc woman who had just claimed the seat across from me as if it were her throne. The tavern's murmurs resumed, but they felt distant, muffled by the pounding in my chest. My mind raced to catch up. Arranged? For her? The pieces clicked together too quickly. The court's whispers about strengthening the treaty with the Orc clans, Harlow's evasive comments about diplomatic necessities. This wasn't a blind date with some human noble. It was a political gambit, and I was the pawn. You're late," I managed to stammer, my voice sounding weaker than I'd intended. Royalty demanded composure, but in that moment I felt like a boy caught off guard. She tilted her head slightly, her amber eyes narrowing as if assessing whether I was worth the explanation. "Roads are not safe," she said matter-of-factly, her accent thick and rolling, like thunder echoing through mountains. "Bandits, orcs who hate peace, fought 3, lost time." She shrugged, as if dispatching enemies was as routine as tying her boots. No apology, no excuses, just facts. I blinked, trying to process. "And you're Vreya Stormfang?" she replied, leaning forward. Her tusks caught the lantern light, the runes etched into them glowing faintly with some ancient orc magic. 32 summers, warrior of Ashbone clan, sister to Chieftain Karg. He wants alliance. Your court fears war again. Marriage fixes that." She paused, then added with a grunt, "I volunteered, sounded interesting." Interesting? The word hung in the air like a challenge. I glanced around the tavern, humans shifting uncomfortably, orcs watching with subtle approval. This was madness. An orc as a potential queen? The court would erupt. Yet here she was, unapologetic, her presence a force that demanded attention. "Blind date," she continued, spitting the words like they tasted foul. "Stupid name, not blind." "I see everything clear." She signaled to Bridge with a raised hand, ordering 2 tankards of orc brew. Strong, fermented stuff that smelled like earth and fire. When the drinks arrived, she slid one to me without ceremony. "Drink. Talk." I hesitated, then took a sip. It burned going down, warming my insides and loosening the knot in my stomach. "Why volunteer?" I asked, curiosity overriding my shock. "Most orcs, well, from what I've heard, they don't see humans as equals." Vreya laughed, a deep rumbling sound that turned heads. "Equals? No, but strong in different ways. Orcs fight with muscle, humans with words, tricks. Alliance needs both." She took a long pull from her tankard, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "Heard about you. Prince who wins battles with treaties, not blood." "Interesting." I felt a flush creep up my neck. "You've been researching me." "Know your enemy," she said with a grin, then corrected herself. "Or ally." Her straightforwardness was disarming, cutting through the layers of courtly pretense I'd endured all week. No perfumes, no fake laughter, just raw honesty. For the first time in days, I found myself chuckling. "You find that funny?" she asked, one eyebrow arching. "A little," I admitted. "The women I've met lately, they say what they think I want to hear. You say what you mean." "Good," she nodded. "Lies waste time." As we talked, the tavern's tension eased slightly. I shared fragments of my disastrous week, the endless parade of noble ladies, their calculated smiles, the way they eyed the crown more than the man wearing it. Vreya listened intently, her expression unchanging, but her eyes sharpened with understanding. "Humans complicate everything," she said. "Orcs say yes or no, fight or friend, no games." I nodded, feeling a strange kinship. "Sometimes I envy that. My life is all games, alliances, expectations. It's exhausting." She grunted in agreement. "Same for me. Clan expects perfect warrior, kill enemies, honor ancestors, no room for other things." For a moment, her gaze softened, revealing a flicker of weariness beneath the warrior facade. My fingers toyed with the broken compass, still in my hand. I'd forgotten to put it away in the chaos of her arrival. Vreya noticed, her eyes locking onto it. "What is that?" she asked, reaching out with a massive hand. I hesitated, then handed it over. She turned it in her palm, watching the needle spin wildly. "It's broken," I explained. "My grandfather gave it to me, said it would point to my true north, but I dropped it years ago. Now it points everywhere." Most people would have suggested fixing it. Harlow had once offered to send it to the royal artificers. But Vreya didn't. She held it up to the light, the runes on her tusks mirroring the faint glow from the compass's engravings. "Broken things have power," she said thoughtfully. "A compass that points one way forces you to follow. This one? It reminds you path is your choice, not fate's, not clans, yours." I stared at her, stunned. For 12 years, I'd carried that compass as a symbol of my failures, my lack of direction. No one had ever seen it that way, not my advisors, not my family. But Vreya, this orc warrior from a world so different from mine, understood it instantly. "How did you—" I trailed off. She handed it back, her fingers brushing mine, rough, calloused from battles, yet surprisingly gentle. "Orcs break things in war. Learn from breaks. Humans fix everything, forget lessons." She met my eyes. "You keep it because it's true to you. Empty inside, like me." Her words hit like a blow. "Empty inside." Yes, that was it. I was the perfect prince, skilled in swordplay, fluent in diplomacy, beloved by the people. But it was all a role, scripted by the court. No true north, just endless obligations. And Vreya. She was the epitome of orc strength, fierce, unyielding, but her admission hinted at the same void. A life defined by clan expectations, battles won, but no personal victories. We talked longer than I expected. She shared stories of her clan, the Ashbone, known for their storm-riding raids before the treaty. Her brother, the chieftain, pushed for peace, but old hatreds lingered. I opened up about the weight of the crown, the loneliness of being a symbol rather than a man. For the first time, I felt seen, not as Prince Dorian, but as me. As the night deepened, the tavern emptied. Vreya stood, her armor clinking. "This... interesting," she said again, a small smile tugging at her tusks. "Meet again?" I nodded, surprising myself. "Yes. Tomorrow, at the border clearing?" She agreed with a nod, then turned to leave. I watched her go, the door slamming behind her with the same force as her entry. Alone again, I looked at the compass. The needle still spun, but for the first time, it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like possibility. That night, back at the castle, I lay awake, replaying our conversation. Vreya was everything the court would hate, unsuitable, dangerous, real. But in her honesty, I'd found a spark of something I'd lost. Direction, chosen, not imposed. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the storm. The 3 weeks that followed were the most chaotic of my life, a whirlwind that upended everything I thought I knew about duty, desire, and danger. Vreya didn't court me in the polished, predictable way of the royal court. There were no flowery sonnets, no chaperoned walks in manicured gardens, no subtle hints wrapped in silk gloves. Instead, she stormed into my world like a tempest from the border wilds, dragging me along whether I was ready or not. It started the very next morning after our unexpected meeting at the Silver Stag. I woke to a pounding on my chamber door at dawn, the castle still shrouded in pre-light gloom. Groggy and confused, I opened it to find Vreya standing there, armored as always, her massive frame blocking the hallway. "Training," she said simply, as if that explained everything. Before I could protest, she grabbed my arm, her grip firm but not bruising, and pulled me toward the courtyard. "You fight like prince. Learn to fight like warrior." The courtyard was empty, the guards too stunned to intervene as she tossed me a practice sword. It felt heavy in my hands, unfamiliar despite my years of fencing lessons. Vreya circled me like a predator, her own blade glinting in the rising sun. "Attack!" she commanded. I lunged, drawing on the elegant forms I'd mastered under the court's swordmasters. Precise, calculated strikes meant to disarm with minimal effort. She parried my first blow with ease, her movements raw and powerful. In 30 seconds, it was over. She disarmed me with a sweeping arc, her sword pressing lightly against my throat. I stood there, breathing hard, sweat already beading on my forehead despite the chill. "Dead," she said flatly. "Again." We trained for hours. She beat me every time, but with each defeat, she taught me something new. How to read an opponent's weight shift. How to use the environment, gravel for footing, shadows for deception. How to fight not for show, but for survival. "Strength, not just muscle," she growled after knocking me down for the 10th time. "Decision, commit or die." By the end, my arms ached, bruises blooming on my skin, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't since childhood. No one had ever pushed me like that, not even my trainers, who always held back for the prince. Word spread quickly. Harlow cornered me that afternoon in the throne room, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Sire, this orc, she's unsuitable. The court is whispering, training in the courtyard like common soldiers." I waved him off, still buzzing from the session. "It's just training, Harlow, nothing more." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Vreya was more raw, unfiltered, a mirror to my own pretenses. She didn't stop at the courtyard. A few days later, during a council meeting on border taxes, the doors burst open mid-debate. Vreya strode in, ignoring the gasps from the assembled nobles. Harlow sputtered, "This is a closed session." She ignored him, her eyes fixed on me as she slammed a fist on the table. "Your advisors lie," she declared, pointing at Lord Varric, a sly noble with a reputation for underhanded deals. "He says orcs raid villages. False. His men steal from orc caravans. Blame us. Proof?" She tossed a bloodied banner onto the table, Varric's family crest torn from a raid site. Chaos erupted. Varric denied it, red-faced, but Vreya's evidence was irrefutable. She'd investigated on her own, riding into the borderlands without escort. The council was forced to confront the truth. Some of our own were sabotaging the peace for profit. Harlow called her barbarian, but I saw the respect in a few eyes, mine included. She called the advisors cowards to their faces, exposing hypocrisies I'd long suspected but never voiced. "Peace not words," she said before leaving. "Actions." In public, she was a force of nature. At state dinners in the Grand Hall, she ate with orc gusto, tearing into roasted boar with her hands, ignoring the silverware and the disdainful stares from the ladies of the court. Whispers followed. Savage, unfit. She met them with a tusked grin, unflinching. Once, when a duchess sneered about green-skinned brutes, Vreya leaned in and said, "Brutes win wars. Pretty words lose them." The hall fell silent. But it was in the quiet moments that she truly unraveled me. Late at night, when the castle slept, we'd meet in the library, a vast chamber filled with ancient tomes and the scent of aged parchment. It was my sanctuary, a place to escape the crown's weight. Vree would find me there, slipping in like a shadow despite her size. She'd sit beside me on the worn leather chairs, her armor removed for once, revealing the intricate tattoos snaking up her arms. Stories of battles won, ancestors honored. One such night, as I pored over a map of the borderlands, she spoke softly. A rarity for her. "My mother died in the war," she said, staring into the flickering candle flame. "Human arrow. I was 10. Clan made me warrior early, perfect fighter, no weakness. Her voice cracked just a fraction, betraying the cost. But perfect. Empty. Forgot what I want, just what clan needs. I looked up, the map forgotten. Her words echoed my own burdens, the endless drills to be the ideal prince, the suppressed dreams buried under duty. I know that feeling, I admitted. The court molds you into a symbol, strong, wise, unyielding, but inside, hollow, like a suit of armor with no one wearing it. She turned to me, her amber eyes searching mine. Yes, hollow. Then, with a wisdom that belied her warrior exterior, she added, perfect is cold thing, untested. Pressure comes, crack. She mimed a shattering motion with her hands. Real strength breaks, mends, stronger. I understood then, more than ever. We were mirrors, products of our worlds, excelling at roles that left us unfulfilled. Vreya challenged me, not just physically, but emotionally, forcing me to confront the facade I'd built. In return, I shared stories of my grandfather, the compass, the loneliness of the throne. She listened without judgment, offering insights that cut through the nonsense. Choose your path, she'd say, echoing her words about the compass. Not theirs. But the conflicts mounted, whispers turned to open opposition. Harlow warned me daily, she's dangerous, sire, the nobles won't stand for it. Border skirmishes flared, instigated by those fearing the alliance, and Vreya's presence only fueled the flames. My own people saw her as a threat, an invader in our midst. Her clan, too, sent messengers questioning her softness toward humans. We were unsuitable, unsafe together, yet in that unsuitability, everything felt real, raw emotions, genuine laughter, unfiltered truths. For the first time, I wasn't playing a role. I was living one. As the weeks blurred, the tension built toward an inevitable breaking point. I knew the court would force a reckoning soon. But with Vreya, I felt ready to face it, not as the perfect prince, but as a man willing to crack and mend. The council chamber felt like a cage closing in, the air thick with incense and indignation. It was mid-afternoon when Harlow summoned me urgently, his missive scrawled in haste. Emergency session. Your indiscretions threaten the throne. I knew what it meant. The whispers had turned to shouts. Vreya's presence in the castle, our meetings, the training sessions visible from the battlements, it had all boiled over. As I entered the grand hall, flanked by marble columns etched with the histories of Eldoria's human kings, I saw the faces of the council, stern, judgmental, a wall of tradition ready to crush any deviation. Harlow stood at the head of the long oak table, his robes immaculate, his expression a thundercloud. Around him sat the key nobles, Lord Varric, still smarting from Vreya's exposure of his schemes, Duchess Alara, her lips pursed in perpetual disapproval, and a dozen others, their eyes boring into me like daggers. "Sire," Harlow began, his voice measured, but laced with venom, "we must address the Orc. This association cannot continue." I took my seat at the table's end, feeling the weight of their stares. "Association?" I echoed, keeping my tone even. "Her name is Vreya Stormfang. And she's more than that." Murmurs rippled through the room. Varric leaned forward, his voice oily. "With respect, Your Highness, an orc as a consort? It's unseemly. The people expect a human queen, one who upholds our traditions. This alliance with the Ashbone clan, it's reckless. Orcs are brutes, unfit for the throne room." Duchess Alara nodded vigorously. "Think of the court, sire. The ladies whisper of scandal. An orc queen. It would invite rebellion from the border lords who lost kin in the wars. It's not suitable. Not for Eldoria, not for you." Harlow slammed a fist on the table, his composure cracking. "End it now, Dorian. For the kingdom's sake. We've arranged alternatives. Human nobles from allied houses, safe choices. This path leads to ruin." Safe. The word echoed in my mind like a mockery. For years, I'd chosen safe. Safe treaties, safe alliances, safe life. But with Vreya, I tasted something else. Real, raw, unyielding. The council's words stirred a fire in me, one she'd ignited during our dawn trainings and midnight talks. I thought of her lessons. Commit or die. Pressure cracks the untested. I couldn't back down now. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the stone floor. The room fell silent. From my pocket, I pulled the broken compass, its silver casing worn from years of handling. I placed it in the center of the table, the needle spinning wildly under the chandelier's light. "This," I said, my voice steady, "was my grandfather's. He said it would point to my true north. But I broke it. It points everywhere now." Harlow frowned. "Sire, what does this—" "It doesn't point anywhere specific," I interrupted, meeting each counselor's gaze. "And for years, I thought that made me lost. But I'm not lost because it's broken. I'm lost because I followed your true north, the safe one, the expected one. The one where I marry for politics, rule without heart, live as a symbol instead of a man." Varric scoffed. "Romantic nonsense. The throne demands sacrifice." "Sacrifice!" I shot back, my voice rising. "I've sacrificed enough. My choices, my truths. Vreya sees me, not the crown. She's taught me strength isn't in perfection, but in breaking and mending. This alliance isn't just political, it's real. And yes, it's unsuitable, unsafe. But it's honest. I choose her. I choose truth over safety. I choose a partner who looks at me as a person, not a pawn." The chamber exploded in outrage. "Treasonous!" Alara cried. "An orc on the throne, the people will revolt." Harlow's face purpled. "You'll lose everything. The crown. The kingdom!" I held my ground, the compass's spinning needle a blur in my vision. "If the crown demands I live a lie, then perhaps it's not worth wearing." The doors at the far end of the hall burst open with a resounding crash, echoing like thunder. Guards scrambled, hands on hilts, but they froze as a massive figure entered. It was Karg Stormfang, Vreya's brother, the chieftain of the Ashbone clan. He towered even over Vreya, his green skin scarred from a lifetime of battles, his armor adorned with the bones of fallen enemies. Behind him, Vreya herself stepped in, her expression a mix of defiance and pride. How they'd entered the castle undetected was a mystery, likely orc stealth, slipping past patrols like shadows. Karg's voice boomed, filling the room. "You speak of unsuitability? My sister is warrior-born, blood of storms. She chooses this human prince, and I bless it." He strode to the table, ignoring the council's gasps. "Two weak branches tied make strong rope. This union binds our peoples. Reject it, and peace crumbles." Harlow stammered. "This is an outrage." "Orcs in the council chamber?" Vreya stepped forward, her hand on my shoulder, a touch that sent a jolt through me, solid and reassuring. "Outrage? Your lords steal from our caravans, call us brutes. Yet here we stand, offering hand, not blade." The council shifted uncomfortably. Varric avoided my eyes. Alara fidgeted with her rings. Harlow, cornered, appealed to me. "Sire, think rationally. This could spark war, not prevent it." "I've thought enough," I replied. "Rationally, safely. It's led us to fragile peace built on lies. With Vreya, it's different, stronger." I turned to Karg. "Your blessing means more than you know." He nodded, tusks gleaming. "Prove worthy of her. Orc way. Fight for what you claim." As Karg and Vreya stood beside me, the council's protests faded into reluctant murmurs. They had no choice. The chieftain's presence turned the tide, a living symbol of the alliance's potential. Harlow conceded through gritted teeth. "The court accepts for now, but the consequences are yours." The meeting dissolved in tension, nobles filing out with dark looks. Alone with Vreya and Karg, I exhaled, the weight lifting slightly. But danger lurked. A shadowy figure in the hall's recess slipped away unnoticed. That night, an assassin struck at Vreya in the gardens, a poisoned dagger from Varric's faction, I suspected. We fought him off together, her strength and my quick thinking turning the tide. We fled briefly to the border, hiding in an orc outpost while Karg rallied support. In those tense days, I realized the cost, lost allies, brewing rebellion. But with Vreya's hand in mine, it felt worth it. "Unsafe choice," she said one night by the fire. "But right one." Yes, I agreed. For us. The climax had passed, but the storm was just beginning. The wedding was a spectacle that Eldoria and the Orc clans would talk about for generations, though not always kindly. We held it on the borderlands in a neutral clearing where the human farmlands met the wild forests of the Ashbone territory. It was a compromise, like everything in our union. Half human ceremony, half orc ritual. The human side began at dawn with vows under a canopy of silk banners embroidered with Eldoria's eagle crest. I stood in my royal finery, velvet tunic, crown polished to a gleam, reciting promises of loyalty and protection in the ancient tongue of our kings. The council attended reluctantly, their faces masks of forced civility, Harlow's eyes darting as if expecting an ambush. Vreya arrived in her clan's battle regalia, her green skin painted with runes of strength and unity. Her vows were shorter, spoken in Orcish with a human translator echoing them. I bind my storm to your sky. Break together or stand unbreakable. Then came the Orc half, blood exchanged under the ancient oaks, a drop from each of us mingled in a carved bone chalice symbolizing shared fate. Karg presided, his voice booming blessings that echoed through the trees. Arrows from both sides were snapped in unison, signifying the end of old wars. It was beautiful in its rawness, a fusion that felt right to us, but to many, it was an abomination. The court accepted it, barely. Protests turned to grumbles, alliances held by a thread. But acceptance didn't mean peace. Our marriage was a lightning rod for discontent. In the months that followed, whispers became plots. Border skirmishes flared more often, fueled by nobles like Varric, who saw our union as a weakness to exploit. One night, a poisoned goblet appeared at a state banquet, intended for Vreya, traced back to a disgruntled lord. We rooted out the traitor, but the incident left scars. Vreya's clan faced similar unrest. Elders accused her of diluting orc blood. Young warriors challenged her loyalty in ritual combats she won handily, but at the cost of old friendships. Life in the castle was a battlefield of its own. Vreya adapted, or rather, refused to fully adapt. She patrolled the walls at night, her orc instincts keeping her vigilant, while I navigated the court's intrigues during the day. We argued often, about protocol, about how to handle dissenters. Crush them, she'd say, her tusks bared in frustration. Show strength. I'd counter with diplomacy. Words can disarm without blood. But in the quiet hours, we'd find common ground in the library or our chambers, her head on my shoulder as we planned for a future neither of our peoples fully embraced. It wasn't perfect. Far from it. Perfection, as Vreya had taught me, was a brittle illusion. Our union invited prejudice from both sides. Human servants whispered beast behind her back. Orc envoys eyed me as weak. We lost allies. Some nobles defected to rival houses, claiming our mongrel alliance doomed Eldoria. Vreya's visits to her clan grew tense, her brother Karg defending her but unable to silence all doubters. Yet amid the chaos, we built something real. She taught me to wield a battle axe with orc ferocity. I showed her the subtleties of human poetry, reading verses by candlelight that made her laugh at their flowery nonsense before admitting they stirred something deep. 2 years passed in this fragile balance. Then came our daughter, Mira, a miracle and a challenge. She arrived on a stormy night, her cries echoing through the castle like thunder, half human, half orc. Skin a soft olive green, tiny tusks budding, eyes a blend of my blue and Vreya's amber. The midwives marveled, the court recoiled, whispers turned vicious. Abomination. Curse on the line. Even Karg's blessing couldn't shield her from the stairs during her naming ceremony, a hybrid rite where we mingled blood and vows again. Mira grew quickly, her laughter filling the halls, but the world de-chung her. Human children shied away in the castle gardens. Orc visitors from the clans regarded her with wary curiosity. We shielded her as best we could, teaching her both worlds. I read her tales of Eldoria's heroes, emphasizing choice over fate. Vreya trained her in basic holds, whispering orc lore about strength from unity. "You are bridge," Vreya would say, holding Mira close. "Not half. Whole. stronger for it. But the prejudice stung. Once, a young noble boy called her monster during a playdate. Vreya's roar nearly started a brawl, and I had to intervene with words that felt hollow. Through it all, I kept the broken compass in my pocket, its spinning needle a constant companion. I'd fiddle with it during council meetings, a reminder of the path I'd chosen. But gradually, I needed it less. True North wasn't a direction anymore. It was the life we'd forged, messy and real. Vreya and I faced assassins, court intrigues, even a minor uprising on the border that we quelled together. Her leading the charge, me negotiating the surrender. Our bond deepened in the fires of adversity, proving that unsuitable didn't mean unsustainable. One evening, as the sun set over the castle walls, I stood on the balcony with Vreya and Mira. Our daughter played with a wooden sword Vreya had carved, giggling as she fought imaginary foes. Vreya wrapped an arm around me, her warmth a contrast to the cooling air. "Regrets?" she asked quietly, her voice a rumble. I shook my head. None. Us. It's worth every scar. I pulled out the compass one last time, watching the needle dance. I don't need this anymore. My true north is here, chosen, not given. She smiled, tusks glinting. Good. Throw it if you want, or keep. Your choice. I kept it, tucking it away as a relic of the man I'd been. Our life remained imperfect. Threats lingered, prejudices simmered, but we lived it fully. Mira grew into proof that love across divides could thrive, a beacon for those weary of old hatreds. In the end, courage wasn't in battles won or thrones held. It was in daring to choose the real over the safe, embracing the consequences and building a world where our daughter could be whole. That was our true north, and we'd fight for it every day.